Okay, everyone, just give me a couple minutes. We're just going to test our, where is it? I'm going to refresh that page. Just want to test out my video and audio settings on Facebook or YouTube, I should say. Yep. Beautiful. That's all working. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our latest edition of the Eureka Conservative Podcast. Every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, we get on here and have a good old chat and policy announcement. I've been doing some daily ones, so ever since the Charlie Kirk assassination, whenever I get a bit of time during the day, it's usually later in the day, 3 or 4, I do get on via my phone and do a bit of a live stream with I do a Bible reading because that's what Charlie Kirk was all about, his faith. And then I have my little daily Bob rant. So tonight is obviously now an expanded version of that. But more importantly, we put out some conservative policy that we will be taking to our conservative and other politicians, especially on the sensible centre right of politics as opposed to the far right. And we'll be presenting that to them. It's building every single week. And this week we've got another, what we call a policy announcement, where we want to take things in this state and in this country, which I think is becoming more and more important. So today we're going to be focusing on something that actually Charlie Kirk inspired me with. I was listening to a lot, obviously, of all his memorials and his friends and associates who were talking about his life. And one of the things that I thought was fantastic is his next stage he was looking at was to get a pivot back towards the more traditional nuclear family. And I think that is definitely a winning policy for any centre-right conservative-leaning party. And I think the Liberals, LNP, One Nation, Libertarians should all be jumping on board on this. Get us back away from the promiscuity of the LGBTQI thing. And there's a big difference in the alphabet on the LG, split it up from the rest, because the LG is people in same-sex relationships. And as long as those are I'm going to do an elbow here, magnanimous, which I'm pretty sure is the right way to pronounce it. So that's basically where each partner is dedicated to the other person and they're not sleeping around or playing around. Then I think they can be healthy relationships as well. But even more so, I think we should be pivoting back to your traditional Christian nuclear family. So that's one male, one female partner based in Christian values, teachings, ethos, and raising their kids, embrace those same values. Get back to what we had, from the 1960s and before, from our federation right up to the 60s, where we started to go away from that, and we moved into a much more freer society in regards to relationships, sexual encounters, all those sorts of things, to where it's just got out of hand these days. Where men don't know whether they're men or women. Women don't know whether they're women or men. People are choosing their own sex. They're choosing their own bloody genders. They're not having kids. They're proud of their body count on abortions. We've just become an insane society that are trying to inbreed ourselves out of existence. So I think it's long overdue, and this is something that Charlie Kirk was going back, that we pivot back and we go, you know what, we had it right back in the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, the 30s. And when I was growing up, and this is a while ago, obviously, it wasn't the norm for people to get divorced. It was really frowned upon. If a man walked out on his family and his wife, he was ostracized by his own family, his group of friends, people within society. And a lot of this came about, I blame Hollywood, because actors just started playing around. And then you had the love-in free rallies back in the 60s, and it all just changed. And a lot of that, I believe, came from the Hollywood scene, and the media then imploded, and then it all just became the norm. And we've slowly but evolved to now where women jump on social media websites like Pornhub, Bonnie Blue, for example, and her life is dedicated to how many men she can have sex with on a given night. You know, I think her record's up to 1,000, but I think half that's bullshit. I don't see how you can physically do that, even if you wanted to do that, and why you would want to do that is beyond me. And why men would want to jump in there. I mean, there's got to be some desperate, sick assholes out there that think it's a good, healthy thing. You know, that's a shocking thing for your soul. So these are the people that would probably go around and rape women, rape kids, and we're encouraging it. So, you know, we talk about social media bans. Well, there's something that should be kicked off our internet and social media. That's where that's what they should be protecting our kids from, our young men from, our young women from, and is that sort of rubbish on the internet. It's not good for the soul, and that's something that Charlie Kirk was big on. And we've got to get back to those Christian values, those family values, those nuclear family values. People call it old school. I call it common sense. And that's where we've got to head this thing before it's all too late and our societal structure breaks down. And the biggest thing, there's a lot of marches being announced, and there's a lot of white nationalists going around there, and they want to kick the immigrants out and all that. Well, that's all fine. But, you know, at the moment, we leave ourselves wide open because our birth rate's abysmal. You know, it's not even replacing the current population. So if you're a white nationalist out there, you better be actually getting our society back to a point where we embrace, you know, large families. We get our Christian faith back and we start getting back on board. I went to my local church on the weekend. I'm a Catholic. So, you know, there was a priest, obviously, and he had 3 altar boys there supporting him in his service. The interesting part, though, is the priest was Asian and the 3 altar boys were either Indian or Sri Lankan. You know, so all these white nationalists that want to kick out these certain immigrants, well, you know, be careful what you wish for, because a lot of these also pronounce that they're Christians. Well, if you're a Christian, are you actually going to become a priest? Because you're going to kick them all out. You know, are you going to make your kids become altar boys or service boys or whatever? Because you're going to kick those ones out too. The same thing would go for a lot of the charities that get run these days. So, you know, we've got to be, you know, if you followed me for any length of time, I'm totally against the white nationalist. I was saying the other day I had an exchange with Beck Freedom on social media. She's the organiser of these March for Australia rallies. In my book, she's an NSN sympathiser. She got offended by that, so she had a crack at me, which is fine. That's the internet. And because I run this now, I said, well, okay, come on the podcast. Come on and let's talk it out. Let's see where you're at. I've actually said that to a few NSN types. I invited them on the podcast. I don't care who you are, as long as you come on and you're respectful and you actually engage in debate and you don't do a Piers Morgan where you're yelling over people or insulting people. I'd quite happily speak to anybody. They can be part of the ALP, the Greens, the Liberals, the Nationals. I've invited a lot of the Libertarians on, no takers. So maybe it's because we're too small. That shouldn't bother you. I'll invite all of them on again. So, you know, come on board and, you know, come and try and bash a boomer. Here I am. Let's have that discussion. Let's have that debate. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to discuss it. And if there's anyone out there that you think we should be recommending, get them on board. Anyway, that's enough of rant. I'll come back to that in a minute. Time for some policy. So this family policy we're going to go through. Here I go again. Got to put the glasses on. Get the screen up. Where am I? Oh, damn it. You see, guys, I'm still trying to figure this out. Part 1, part 2, and next part 3. Sorry, I just had to get on there. Part 2, part 1. Here we go. So this is 3 pages. So we should have that up. We do. So part 1. So we want to pivot back to the traditional Christian nuclear family. That's where we want to take society. Now, you're not going to get there and get 100% of the society back to it. But, you know, I would love to see us to get to 70-30 or 80-20 ratio. I understand there's no way you can force the entirety of your population to this. But if you have this goal, then and we can get to, say, a 70-30 set up, then ultimately your society is going to be a much better place to be in than what it currently is now. So as I just said in my introduction, my preamble, since the 1960s, the tradition, and before I start, forgive any spelling or grammar checks. It's been a really busy week, and I only finished typing this up just before I came on. So I'm about to go through this and find those spelling and grammar errors, as I do every single week. So let's see how I go. Since the 1960s, the traditional Christian nuclear family has been under constant attack and demonized. Since then, the concept of men and women marrying and having children has been demonized to the point that we're facing a societal collapse due to a devastatingly low birth rate. Many of our young adults are now consumed with promiscuity in their lifestyles as opposed to engaging in monogamous dedicated relationships with the partner of the opposite sex. I believe future Conservative governments need to embed an educational mentoring framework to encourage our youth with ambitions to enter into positive relationships to create once more a nuclear Christian family. The future government needs to adopt, and the country I'm looking to steal some policy from is Hungary, Viktor Orban. They had a declining birth rate, and instead of immigration, they wanted to encourage people to get married, have families, and raise their birth rate so they didn't have to rely on immigration. Here is all I say to that. So I'm stealing their policies a fair bit here, and we'll add some as we go. So the future government needs to adopt Hungary's family policies platform. In Hungary, young adults who have or pledge to have children are eligible for a baby grant of roughly 5 years minimum wage. Families who choose to have 3 or more children can access especially generous tax breaks and highly subsidised mortgages. So we give young families some priority in getting them into housing. Hungary women with 4 children or more will be exempted for life from paying income tax. So, this is not a rule across the board, but, if there's a man and a woman, they want to have kids. A lot of women are career-minded women, but this actually gives them some real incentive to have at least 4 children. They can still have their careers, but once they get to 4 and they're still career-minded after that, they're going to get no tax on their income. I think that is a great initiative. So we'll just replace it. That's the end of that. There's a fair bit to this, and there'll be a bit more to come. Replace screen sharing. I'm now going to part 2, share. Just make sure I'm in there. Sorry, guys. I talk to myself when I do this. First sign of madness. So young couples will be offered interest-free loans of approximately 56,000 Australian dollars to be cancelled once they have 3 children. Again, that's a great incentive. If a woman has a child while studying or just after finishing, her student loan repayments are suspended for 3 years along with an interest subsidy, so her total loan doesn't increase. If she has a second child, the repayable amount of the loan is reduced, and a third child wipes her debt out entirely. We would argue Australia needs to adopt all of these possible, but with an increased emphasis on married couples, not just mothers. If we're going to get, so you could have a student, a female student going to university, but she is in a relationship and she's indicating that she's going to be getting married and having kids. So that would apply. You could have a reduced rate for single mums, but we want to encourage women to embrace, the idea of getting married and having a family. They can embed their careers in that as they do, but we want them also to be really given serious consideration to have families to not just replace them, but increase our population. So an interesting development, I did a type here in Google to find out different policies from across the globe in history. Discovered this one. Even in Nazi Germany, newlyweds were eligible to receive an interest-free loan of 1,000 Reichmarks in 1939, which equates to about 9,000 today in Australian dollars. That loan was specifically for young couples to go out and buy furniture for any new house. So I give in $9,000 and they could go out and purchase, lounge, fridge, TV, whatever. So again, nice incentive. My NSN friends would be excited that I'm adopting Nazi policy, but what we have done is take out that was only eligible to women of certain purity who could build the Aryan race. This is across the board. So we're not going full Nazi, but, if it's a good policy, it's a good policy. There was a lot the Nazis actually did, Hitler did, pre-World War II, for example, the building of the Autobahn, that were actually good things. He brought Germany back from, collapse in many ways, and then he lost the plot. All right, 1/4 of the loan for this was forgiven for each child. So again, their policy was once you had the 4th child, no more was owed. So you'd be given $9,000, and the key to that, you didn't have to pay it back if you had children. If you had 4 children, you didn't have to pay anything back. We would embed these policies into the ones adopted from Hungary. So that policy we would have, and we would also be looking, instead of 3 children, make it 4. I think before you forgive any debts, there should be the idea of 4 children is if a family has 2 children, they simply replace the mother and father. If they have 4 children, not only are they replacing the mother and father, there's an extra child on top of that for both parents. So you're increasing the population, by 100% every time you do it. Then those children go out and they all get married. They do the same thing and go up again. So you're giving some real incentive for people to have children, have larger families, and help increase the Australian population, the Indigenous population to Australia. Priority for rental, public and private housing should also be implemented in Australian incentives to encourage the return to a traditional nuclear family. So we would need to put something in legislation where if a young couple who had, say, 2 kids, they leapfrogged working couples who had no kids, because you want to make sure that people that take on the bonus of providing back to their country by increasing our birth rate so we could secure what we are as a country, culturally, economically, demographically, they're getting rewarded for making that choice. So we certainly want to be encouraging that. So whether it's in public housing, whether it's in rental housing, or even in private housing, in sales of housing, we have to find a way to prioritise young families. Outside financial incentives, programs need to be introduced into our secondary and tertiary institutions to promote the positives of entering into marriage and raising a family. Right now, as I get that through, what we have in our educational institutions is we don't have, excuse me guys while I get to the next one, we don't have those incentives. In fact, quite the opposite. Our education systems, in many ways, are encouraging to move away from traditional families. So they're encouraging the LGBT community. They're encouraging the trans community. They're encouraging all the communities that go away from it. And even with children, we're at a point now where in our society, if you are a gay couple, you can get another woman impregnated, they carry and give birth to the child, and then that child gets handed over from their biological parent to parents that aren't their biological parents. I don't think that is healthy at all. And in Canada, it's got so insane that they approved apparently just a recent period, I won't say it was last week, I read about it last week, where a relationship containing 3 men, so this is not even 2 gay men, this is 3 gay men, have been approved to be able to go through that process where, they impregnate, I can't remember what they call the process, but they basically get a woman pregnant, she carries it to term, gives it birth, and hands it over to these men. And I think you're taking a big chance on handing over any baby to men. And there was a case, I can't remember where it again was, in America, where they did this, and these guys were dressing up this child, and one of them was actually has been on charges for pedophilia before. So, you're relying on your what do they call it? Your bureaucracies, your public servants to vet these people. And as we know, the public servants get a lot of this wrong. So I think we need to get back to a society that you want kids, go marry. If you're a man, go marry a woman. If you're a woman, go marry a man, adopt some Christian values and have children and raise them right. So otherwise, don't have them. So we want to encourage that traditional family. We also believe an introduction of a society club similar to the TPUSA chapter. So that was Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. And we don't have chapters as such in the Australian university landscape. We have things like clubs and all that sort of thing. It's not a big thing like it is in America. In America, you have all those films where sorority houses. So that's where students go and they live in these sorority houses. I used to coach at one university, and the kids that were living in the on-site residential colleges, which is what they call them in Australia, they cost a lot of money. It's quite expensive. A lot of those kids end up where they can to get in share houses with other students because it's far less expensive. But we need to start establishing some sort of program to go not only into our universities, but into our secondary schools, and encourage kids, mentor kids, especially our young men, back into the role of what is traditional family. And then that goes to the next step, returning or emboldening. So some schools have these, some don't, a chaplain and pastoral services to our educational institutions with an emphasis on mentoring our youth to the ideals of marriage and family. So, when we all grew up, if you went to a Catholic school, you had a lot of pastoral and chaplain care. That just came with the territory. I went to both Catholic and public, but back in the 70s, you always had a local priest from the Catholic Church or an Anglican I don't even know what they call an Anglican chaplain, I suppose it is. You always had someone there who you can go see if you had some issues. They would turn up once or twice a week, and there'd be an announcement on the school speaker. And if you wanted to go talk to that person, you could go talk to them. It wasn't compulsory, but that should be something we put back in. And these could be integrated into these societal clubs to help young people form a basis on forming a traditional nuclear family and show them the healthy aspects to that, encourage them to be going down that. And I especially think this is important for young men. Young men are a lost group at the moment. They've lost in many aspects their traditional roles in the family, where they are the head earner of the family in income, and they provide and support for the family. They're the first people of defense for their family. They are the strong individual behind the family working in unison with their wife, who plays just an important role in it. That's interestingly clearly stated out in the New Testament when Jesus got asked about the role of a husband and a wife. So I'll try and find that one day in my rants going forward. So anyway, I think you should combine those two and get those into both secondary schools and also universities. The implementation of a program providing alternatives to women engaging in abortion and offering support and alternatives to ending pregnancies. So there used to be, and I don't think they are available anymore. If a woman, and a lot of women get abortions for different reasons, a lot of them are stressed out, they don't know where to turn, but they just walk into these facilities, and a lot of them will have regrets later on, devastating regrets on losing the child because they felt the pressure to have an abortion to save their careers or from embarrassment with family or friends or whatever it might be. There should be counsellors at these abortion clinics that can stop and talk to these women and say, look, have you explored all the alternatives? Here's a service. Here's a program. You don't need to abort this child. You can carry whatever it is. You can carry this child to term, and there'll be adoption options, just as one option you may have. Or help this mother to realize she can have the child, still have a career, find the support services, and make sure, rather than destroying our future population, we're enhancing it and growing it. So I think that's got to be a special program, especially on the female side. And we've got to get away from this cult of, I've had 10 abortions and I love it. No one can, with a soul, with a decent, and this is not faith, if you've got a sense of any sort of humanity you need to learn what an abortion entails, especially late-term abortions. It is absolute murder of that child within your womb. You're killing a human being. It's not an embryo, it's killing a human being. And our young people have got to be shown, and there's got to be two sides. The women who choose to have an abortion, I believe actually no abortion should be able to go be processed until you have co-approval of both the mother and the father. I think women should be given the education or the mentoring that it is not a stain on your reputation to be a single mother. You can go through with a pregnancy, and government should be able to help them, whether through employers, to make sure that they can have this kid. They don't have to sacrifice their careers. There'll be the support for them to go through with that child and bringing that child into, our society. And young men have also got to take their obligations on this far more seriously. You don't just look at a woman as some sort of notch on your belt. You've got to start looking at women. This is the future mother of your child. And if you get her pregnant, you have accountabilities back to that mother that you've got to meet. And having the baby aborted is not an answer. You've done the deed, take the responsibility for it, meet your obligations. And that's part of that mentoring program that I'm talking about with both young men and women, to get them away from this culture of promiscuity and, no responsibility in what they're doing. And here we go. Sorry, I just preempted that. The implementation also of a special program that mentors young men back towards their traditional roles as heads of the family, emboldening them to support their marriages, their obligations to their partners and children, and to be defenders of their families and their homes. We've got to get young men back into that role. We've got to teach them, that's what you basically brought in this life for. So we've gone too far back away from it. And we've got to get men back to realizing their responsibilities and their obligations. Incentives for couples to return to church marriages. This is where you can encourage, they don't even have to be Christian or whatever, but I think we should be legislating and encouraging couples to get married in a church again, and also engaging in what I think is very healthy is the pre-marriage programs that Christian faiths in particular offer. And a lot of these can go for up to 3 to 6 months. And they just make sure, before you've agreed to get married, but they take you through the whole process of what that entails and the road bumps that you're going to have along in a marriage. When you get married in church, you say, for God, for better or for worse. Well, you've got to understand what the worse is before you get better. And you've also got to be taught, we've got to be teaching these kids, those road bumps will come along, but if you work together, you'll get through them and your marriage will actually become stronger. So I think there's all these incentives that governments can help promote, encourage, support, and get our country back to a position where having a traditional Christian nuclear family is not a stain on you as a person. It's actually a badge of honor that you're actually doing something to help develop our country, help to bring into this country, into our society, not only new citizens, but you're going to take on the obligation of raising them as responsible citizens. And you've only got to look at Melbourne at the moment to see that we're failing in that degree with our youth. And we really need to get back to that part where they've got men in their lives who teach them, against assaulting others, against stealing, what is the right way to go out and earn a job, to get a living, to teach them values, mentor them into societal responsible values so they can then grow up to be responsible citizens who repeat that effort with their families. I just think that's something as conservatives we need to get back into. So I was typing this away. The more I got into it, the more I realized I'm not going to get to it. So that's already part 3. And I had to finish then when I said more to come. So I'm going to have to come back to a few of these policies because I've got 2 or 3 now where I've got more to add. But I think this could reach out to about a 5-page, PowerPoint sort of presentation for our policy. We'll put meat to it later on. But that's our latest policy announcement. A pivot back to the traditional nuclear family. So be very interested to see if any of you have feedback for me on that. That is definitely what we're after. Oh, here we go. Uh, I always get some trolls, so I'm on my YouTube. Good on you, Ashley. Hate watching is still watching. You don't have to be ashamed to like this. I don't think I need to worry about it. Came out with that. Just came and talk. This is what he said. Just came and talk shit at this brain dead boomer. I mean, what people get. I hope you're still listening. Ferguson 434 or whoever you are, and Ashley. But if you think I'm a brain dead boomer, I never put myself up on a pedestal. What sort of life have you got on a Tuesday night where there's so much else to go on, don't know your age, and you just sort of get on a podcast that you don't like to hurl insults? I mean, look in the mirror a bit, boys and girls. If you don't like it, that's fine. Don't like it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to be here. But if you want to engage properly. I'll see if I can get there. Hate watching is still watching. You don't have to be ashamed to like this content. So I think Ashley being positive, you're watching Ferguson, some of my viewers. So let me have a look. This is Ferguson. It's nice to actually have some comments, even as silly as that. Who are you talking to? Laughing my ass off. Your viewers are just as imaginary as your God. Oh, there you go. So that's interesting. Ashley, I think, is a little bit more thing. You're watching Ferguson 434, so am I. What's Ferguson? Just came here to talk shit at this brain dead boomer. Well, I'll tell you what, Ferguson 434, here's a challenge for you, or Ferguson 434, send me a DM, get on my X, and I'll host you here live. Come on, put your face to it. I do every single Tuesday. I do it every single day. And I stand by my beliefs and values. If all you want to do is sling shit, as you say, come on, do it live. Have some courage. Feel free. So, Ashley, keep helping with that engagement. I think Ashley's having a crack at Ferguson. This is it. This is amusing. I don't think I need to worry about engagement. He's got 2 viewers, lots of laugh. Actually, it only actually shows 2 viewers, but once you actually get, just to educate you, Ferguson, it actually does only show 2 viewers on the YouTube, but I do most of mine through X. And we're not big at all. I'm just a nobody from nowhere who gives his opinion on a Tuesday and try and do my little bit. And Ferguson, I'm guessing you might be of the left. I'm not too sure. But I do my own little bit to try and communicate to people, help them people with similar things, or even talk to people with different opinions. And if a lot of us did more of that, we'd have a better society and we'd break down some barriers. So I'm only small. I don't particularly care. I've got no ambition on becoming, like a mega influencer or like that. I actually started doing this. I didn't know how long it lasts, but I actually kind of enjoy it. So it gives me something to do on a Tuesday night. If you don't enjoy it and you're still watching, good on you. You've just increased my engagement. Thank you very much. On the X, we average probably about 100 viewers every single podcast. So there you go, mate. It's not 2, and I'm probably be a few less this week because I haven't had as much time to promote it, but we're small now. Who knows? We might get bigger. Hate watching is still watching. You don't have to be ashamed to like this content. Yeah, that's true, Ashley. If you don't like people having abortions, just don't have one. Yeah, well, that's a kind of silly comment. And you don't have to be a faith-based person to realise the abhorrence of abortions, because it's not just the person having the abortion, idiot. It's the person inside that's getting killed. And the one thing people who are pro-choice will never answer is or they answer with a really stupid question, is if your mother chose to abort you, would you, and you could support it, would you support that abortion? And a lot of them say yes, which is a load of nonsense. You'd say no. It's the natural human instinct to survive. So, we can have that argument about abortions as much like. But again, come on the podcast, make those arguments. If you don't like people having abortions, you just don't have one. I don't know how I can not have an abortion. One, I'm male. And two, the only way you can impact on others to not have an abortion is to having a discussion and to raise in that discussion that you're opposed to it. And if a person's pro it, they can have their opinions and you can talk it through. But funny enough, people who are pro-abortion, they don't want to engage. What they want to do is insult, and they want to put a negative slant on people who are pro-choice instead of finding out the reasons for being pro-choice. Now, here's my advice as an older person, and as a younger person, you tend to not to go against the tide a little bit. But as you get older, you get closer to the end than the beginning. So, I'm well past the halfway point of my life. I don't think I'm going to get into my 90s for different reasons. But as you get close to the end, you do become a little bit more spiritual. You'll start thinking about things and going, what does happen when you pass on? When you're younger, you think you're invincible. But here's the thing. I may be wrong on my faith. I may be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong on abortion. All right. But because I don't think that's necessarily a faith-based thing. I think that's just, if you're a person with humanity, for example, you can find lots of reasons and arguments to fight against abortion. And it doesn't have to be a faith-based thing. But if you take on board and you research, Ferguson, faith, like I had to, and I know a lot of ex-atheists did. So the most famous one recently is Jordan Peterson, who then convert to whether it's Catholicism or Christianity or whatever it is. One of the big reasons for that is you go, well, okay, if there is a life after death, I'm going to have to be accountable for my actions. And I want to make sure that where I'm going after all this is sort of insurance, I suppose, if you want to call it that. But if the Christian faith is actually a fact, and there's a lot of arguments for why it is, then and you are pursuing and approving abortions and all that sort of thing, read up on it, research it, because you're in a lot of shit. So, mate, you can put down all my beliefs and all that, but at least I've researched it. At least I understand it. And at least if what it all is true, then I'm all good. I'm not too sure about you, mate. You should probably do a bit of research on your end and try and figure that one out. And just for your own sake, forget mine. Because if you're wrong, you're in a lot of trouble, Ferguson. So, mate, anytime you want to come on, send me a DM. I'd happily have you. I'd love a few guests to come on the old program. We've had a few guests already. And you can come up against this old boomer and we can debate about all sorts of different things. So feel free. So get off your keyboard, send me a DM, and I'll put you on. That's open to everybody out there. So enjoy the watching. Send through some more messages. I may or may not share them. We'll see. As long as most of what you put there is pretty respectful, that's fine. I'm happy to share those. If it gets not disrespectful or distasteful, we won't share them, but keep them like that. I'm happy to discuss. So anyway, time. I've done all my policy announcements. I'm getting us back to a more traditional nuclear family, so people could raise people like Ferguson and teach him a thing about respect or two, and a few values. I think he needs that bit of help. And instead of being that anonymous person behind a keyboard, get out front. It's not that bad. Anyway, time to move on to my ranty part of the session. It was interesting today that they had that peace plan put forward through Qatar to Hamas. It was pretty in-depth. I thought the funniest part, it was so typical Trump, is Trump got Bibi to ring up people in Qatar to apologise for that strike that killed one of their military personnel. Only Trump could do that. And Bibi did it. He rang up. So, credit to both of them. They've put out a peace plan now. And if it's pretty detailed, I've just read through it. I only found out before I came on that it actually happened today. I haven't got on Twitter much today, or X. But I read through it. It's pretty detailed. It's very reasonable. And anybody who wants to see an end to this war and this nonsense should accept it. My gut feel is Hamas will reject it because they always do. But then the onus is on them. anybody who's protesting should be actually encouraging the Palestinians and Hamas to accept this. They get some really positive things out of this. If they say no to it, then the only thing they want to do is destroy Israel and destroy the Jewish people that live in Israel. So, you're talking now. A group of people that want to, everyone talks about the big word genocide. Well, that's genocide. If they won't accept that peace deal and they want to continue fighting and their goal is the river to the sea, they want to genocide the Jewish population in Israel, maybe the entire Israeli population. Any normal human person with an ounce of common sense would accept that peace plan. If they don't, well, if I was Trump, I'd say, well, but Bibi, if they don't, do what you got to do. Just finish this thing as quickly as you can and forget all the noise. Just get on with it and get it done. There was an argument put this week by one guy, and he's a former army person. I think he was special forces, and he made a valid point. He said they've been too worried in Israel about the global response to this. He said that they should have gone in with all bells and whistles right from day one and finished this war in 2 weeks. And he said the IDF were capable of it. There would have been a high civilian casualty thing. They've done what they can to avoid that, but they've still killed a lot of civilians. He said it's just dragged on too long now for 2 years. Had they gone and got it done in 2 to 4 weeks, they probably would have saved a lot more hostages. But number two, there would have been global outrage for 2 or 4 weeks, but it would have been over by now. That would have been well in the past, and everyone would have moved on. I think he has a really valid point on that case. So that was an interesting development today. Another interesting development was the bloody little bastards who drove that car down the Burke Street Mall. The state of Victoria. Two things that happened today with this Allen government. And look, with it's not just her, it goes back to Dan Andrews and all these magistrates and judges and that they've appointed in their time. These little bastards went before a magistrate and got bail out on our streets again. How many people could they have killed by driving down that thing? And apparently they've been released on bail before. The guy that killed those 2 young kids who was photographed in the Northland shopping centre in a machete fight, he was also released on bail. So these young ones, these young gangsters or whatever you want to call them, criminals, they're getting released on bail and just to commit more crimes. So the innocent, law-abiding citizens are continually being robbed, murdered, raped, run over now, all by people who could have been locked away and should be locked away. Simple thing is get these little thugs off our streets and out of our lives. That's all you got to do. It is not that hard. Stop being their social worker and start making them accountable for the crimes that they commit. It's just got to start happening. There was another one, a guy who was found guilty of raping her 5-year-old daughter, was given a 2.5-year jail term because he said, well, I'm transitioning from a man to a woman and I just couldn't handle the circumstance and I got confused. So the magistrate gave him 2.5 years. He's destroyed that young girl's life, his daughter. He raped his own daughter and he gets 2.5 years. And he was put in a female prison. So figure out where we are in Melbourne and in Victoria when that sort of shit is going on. The bastard should have been put in a male prison and the prisoners there would have looked after him. And he wouldn't be coming out in bail. I can just about guarantee you that. And that's what used to happen not that long ago. If you are a pedophile or if you did that, like you're raping your own daughter, fuck, man, excuse my French. They would go to jail. They'd never come out not long ago. The criminals in the criminal society back in the 70s and 60s, they still had a code of conduct. There were certain things you never, ever did. And if you went in prison guilty of that, so for child rape, you're a dead man. So you've just got, we've gone away from that. It's too hold your hand. It's too, we can help this person. No, you can't. They're an arsehole who just raped their own daughter. Just raped their own daughter. I mean, bloody hell, where are we as a society? Hence why today I'll put that policy in for returning to some traditional values and getting away from this stupid bullshit. So sorry for swearing a bit tonight, but if you can't swear at that, you're never going to swear at anything. So anyway, that's a little bit of the rant. Now, as usual, I get onto my X feed. I'll share that with you, and we'll go through a few of the stories from the week. Not that I've had a pretty busy week, so I haven't really got on as X as much as I normally do. So I've just got to share this screen. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Share. Interesting. There's now an Israeli flotilla. This is not my share thing yet. There's an Israeli flotilla about to go meet this Palestinian flotilla. Greta Thunberg. She could be in a bit of trouble. So, and I would laugh. The most humorous thing would be is if this peace offer from Trump, Hamas accepted, and these guys are going there for absolutely no reason. Sometimes laugh can give you a bit of fun. So anyway, just let me get into my bookmarks. Sadly, sometimes these don't come in the way I want. One of the ridiculous things in the last week, I don't care what side of politics you're on. One, I hate it when our politicians go to England. They always come back with some real nefarious policy. The last time this happened was when Morrison went to England and came back with net zero. We just had Albo over at the UN and now in England. At the UN, he met with Carney, from Canada, and there was some other progressive, Ursula, the president of the European Union, the unelected president of the European Union. And they all got in to talk about how great the social media policies that Australia's got and all this sort of nonsense and our immigration policy, and basically all giving Albo a pat on the back and telling him how wonderful he is when he's just a pathetic individual. And then Albo trots over to England. So he goes from New York to England. And, why did he go to England for? He met Starmer yet again, but he had to go to the Labor conference and to engage in an ALP campaign, a Labor campaign. And they got him all up on thing. It was so bad. It was so out of order for a prime minister to show such partisanship that apparently the bureaucrats that were with him just refused to join him. And, as he said, this is Nigel Farage. Albo refused to meet Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage could easily be, and he's odds on to be, the next Prime Minister of England, and it could be sooner rather than later. And he just failed to meet him on his tour and suggested his party was far right. Why is his party far right? Because they have a legitimate immigration policy, and they're talking about deporting the young adult males who come over without a family that they're putting up in their hotels back to where they came from. And why that is far right, that is just common sense policy. We shouldn't be, there are certain claims for asylum and refugees that you should be seriously looking at as a country. But the ones that are currently coming over on the dinghies, they're not those claims. So anyway, speaking of our mate Albo, Australia is better only than Mexico on the economic ranking. See if I can get this up in a bigger way for everyone. Here we go. I'll see if I can share that. Sorry, guys, just bear with me. I'll get it so we can see it a bit more. Here we go. There we go. So this is average productivity growth for the last 5 years. And you can see Ireland. So that's surprising. They're miles up. So the Slovak, these aren't exactly, the biggest first world countries. US is up there. You'd think that Israel's up there. Hungary, who we mentioned tonight, is up there. So up near the top. So there's your normal groups up there. Let's see. There's no Australia yet. Norway, Iceland, Portugal's ahead of us. You wouldn't have picked that. Denmark's ahead of us. Spain's ahead of us. Austria's ahead of us. Belgium's ahead of us. Sweden's ahead of us. Germany, who've been going through some real issues economically, are ahead of us. The Netherlands, the UK is struggling ahead of Greece. My God, the Greeks are ahead of us. Japan's ahead of us. Canada's just ahead of us. Finland's not. So Italy, who's struggled. Czech Republic, France, these are all now going backwards. Luxembourg, our Kiwi mates are ahead of us. And there's Australia. Who are we above? just Mexico. And Mexico, and it's not even small. Look at this. So this is our financial review. Australia is better only than Mexico on the economic rankings. Average productivity growth in the last 5 years. Now, that's in Albo's. To be fair to Albo, he got in 2022. So this includes the Liberals. So this is across COVID and all that sort of thing. But look, how the hell are we down there? What the hell are we doing there? Australia should be one of the most productive nations on the planet. We should be right up there. And yet, Albo, look where he's got us. So anyway, we'll get out of that one and go back to our Twitter feed so I can bang on a little bit more. So that's just a great example there that we're dropping so far down the economic ladder. We're no better than Mexico. That's pretty bad. This is that story about the 4 violent teens with long rap sheets already bailed. Polls say Labor want to win next November. Victoria must love being victims. Well, we don't. And polls aren't saying Labor to win. The latest poll said the LNP bizarrely would get up. They don't deserve it, but anyway it is, which leads me to the next one. Matthew Kamanzuli, worth following. He shared this story. Oh, Pseudo. The same day he was about to be served with a bankruptcy notice, he did a $1 deal with his wife to change his business and dealings across to his wife. So former state opposition leader John Pseudo transferred his consultancy company to his wife on the same day that he was served with the bankruptcy notice and his long-running legal saga with Liberal colleague Maura Deemy. The guy's a turd. You know, John Pseudo, this is the guy that went cap in hand to the Liberal Party and, stupidly gave the guys some money and they came to a deal to get them on. All rather silly, I feel. Here's something I've been banging on for about a bit. These marches are just doing my head in. We've got so many groups now doing different marches. They're all competing with each other. So like they did in the last election, they're all diluting the centre-right bloc. It could be patriotism, but this is the Reignite Democracy one. She's an interesting one because originally she was against the first lot of marches, the March for Australia done by Beck Freedom, because she said they had a Nazi involvement. Then she came out because she got hammered by the people who follow her, and all of a sudden she supported it. And she said, we've got to get out. We've got to support this march and do it. Then not long after the march, now she's coming out. No, we're not going to involve ourselves in their marches anymore. There's another one coming up on October 19th. Let's organise our own. So she's now committing that there will be no involvement with the Nazis and all this sort of thing. So she changes all the time. Look, in one march, right now, if you're on the centre right, you've got a choice if you want to participate in these marches. I don't personally. You can march all you like. I'm not too sure that's going to change too much. But if you want to do and you want to engage, and if it was the right march, I would definitely consider it. Oh, God, I lost my train of thought. So they're now competing. So you've either can go with March for Australia, which there are definitely NSN sympathisers within that group. So that's promoting the neo-Nazis, NSN, or you can do this one through Reignite Democracy, which really in everything they do is they use a lot of it to sell merch, and this is the way they make an income. So you can either do a march that promotes Nazism or you can do a march that promotes merchandise. I'm not too sure either promotes the best interest of our country. So this is the put of Australia first, and they're fighting against each other now. This is the problem with the centre right. It's about agendas, it's about individual things, all this sort of thing. So here's this peace plan. All right, quick summary. Be interesting if anyone's got feedback on this. A summary of the deal. Let me know what you think. So done a Hamas atrocities, obviously a pro-Israel group. So return of the hostages within 72 hours. I think we'd all could support that. Hamas disarms. We could all support that. The Gaza Strip disarms. We could all support that, unless you're a terror supporter, I suppose. Management of the Strip by an international body headed by Trump and Tony Blair. That is very interesting, how Tony Blair got on board with Trump. Blair's certainly not someone I would have picked. Usually Trump's personnel picks are, I think, pretty good, but that one I'm not so sure about. So Israel to locate on the perimeter of the Gaza border. No Palestinian state. Now, that is really interesting. That is very interesting. So the Palestinian Authority will not be involved. If the Palestinian Authority does not go through the following reforms, changing its education system, stopping paying terrorists, recognising the state of Israel as a Jewish state, disarming terrorist organisations, renouncing the right of return, recognising Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, it will not be part of the reconstruction of the Strip. Whoever wants to leave the Strip will be able to leave, and the Arab countries will contribute their share and support him. And if Hamas says no, it's Bibi to finish the job. There's another one I read which is slightly different to that. So like I said, I haven't consumed that much, but I find the most interesting part, no Palestinian state. Well, Albo and all those that announced a Palestinian state, well, that's just now. If this gets accepted, that's all been blown out of the water, and it just shows you how useless and how ill thought of Albo he's like is. Starmer along with him and Carney. So anyway, now we get going into a lot. I was recognised Palestine. So a lot of these things get mixed up on me. I don't know why. I've got to clear a lot of this out. These are from the last couple of weeks. I'll go into, there's another bookmark. Just bear with me, guys. I'm going to bookmark. I've got a few here just for my own thing. If you don't use bookmarks, they're pretty handy. So you can bookmark and put them into different folders. So if it's to do with business, fitness, motivation, for me, faith, Eureka Conservative, anything I think is worth talking about. Like I said, having a lot. And I do a lot of politics where if they're lengthy, I can go into later. This one's an interesting one. Now that the letter, that's right, it got published today or in the last 24 hours. So Candace Owens was banging on about this letter that Bibi said Charlie Kirk had sent him and challenged him to publish it. I think Bibi and the Israelis were quite smart in this. They just let Candace Owens keep banging on about how this letter didn't exist, it wasn't true, and she was challenged to publish it. Well, they published it, and the letter was everything that Bibi said it was. So Candace has got egg on her face. Megyn Kelly, who supports Candace, has got egg on her face, and I like Megyn Kelly mostly. I don't like her support of Tucker and Candace, but each to their own. But they're all now trying to backtrack and justify their positions. So he's called their bluff, and really they've got nowhere to go. But instead of putting their hand up, admitting they're wrong, they're trying to justify their positions. They, like here, Seth Dillon, I'm seeing this letter for the first time, but I heard Charlie say these things before. That's Charlie Kirk. He said them to me in the Hamptons. That was another big thing that Candace went on. That's proven to have been repudiated. These aren't the words of a man who needed to be threatened or strong-armed in his standing with Israel. That meeting, this letter, and the man who wrote it have been misrepresented in the worst ways by the most malicious of people. Very true. So I'll put that in there because some of these images don't really come up. So I put a few in there. This was interesting. This lady's got a big theory about the British Empire being a big enemy towards Australia. Who else have we got? Can't stand this man. If you like Arthur Sinodinos, he's trying to tear down Andrew Hastie at the moment. We need Andrew Hastie and Jacinta Price in charge of the Liberal Party to give us some semblance of a chance outside of the ALP at the next election, both state and federal. So Sinodinos is a snake who will undermine whoever they want it to be. So, yeah, there's a lot here. That was an interesting debate. Dave Smith and the officer Tatum. I don't know why they call him the officer. And I think that's nearly probably enough. A lot of that, like I said, this is all going back a bit. So this is before the letter came out. Was Charlie offered 150 million from Israel? Candace Owens says that. Was he becoming Catholic? Candace Owens says that. And this guy, who is his right-hand man and good friend, Andrew Colvett, repudiated both those claims. So like everything on social media, you got to be careful on what you take on board, what you don't take on board. Just see how long I've been going for. I'm close to the hour, which is what I usually try to stick to. Have I had any more comments? Hate watching still. He is still watching. Let's see. Okay, got some more. This is good, guys. Watching is still watching. You don't have to be ashamed to lie. Show. So this is from CSI. Is that supposed to be patriotism, or is that a play on words? Patriotism. Not too sure what that means. Becca's been working with the NSN for ages, as has that donkey Ozpill. The NSN are just using these events for recruitment. I couldn't agree more. It is interesting. Good comment, see? It is very interesting. Like I said before, I've invited it. There's a guy they just announced, Watch. He used to go by the Twitter handle Watch News. I can't remember his name. And he was, look, they try to make out that they're not linked to NSN, that they're not NSN people. But you know, they deal with NSN. They have them on their speaker. They give them the microphone to speak to the crowds. They let them head their march. Beck was seen. She's on tape talking at length with Joel Davis, one of the key organisers of the NSN. She was on X Spaces, not only having people with NSN sympathies, because once you've been on social media enough, you get to know them. She was expressing clearly NSN type of views. These are the things I brought up on social media. The guy with the Watch News thing, I had discussions with him. He talked to me about supporting what I was doing. But his comment to me was, basically, do you support a white nationalist policy? When I said no, he had no interest. So I think that there's a quick play on the words that we exchanged. So I basically found out what he was doing. So there's a whole bunch of accounts. You can just... I can tell them now because I got onto one podcast, I think earlier this year, and I expressed these views against the NSN, and I just got piled on. You know, I got trolled by a bunch of NSN members, which was kind of handy because now I know who they are, who they're not, and you know, I don't have to respond in a surprise way. So, I also can follow them a little bit to find out what they're up to. And C is 100% right. Is they definitely use these marches for recruitment purposes, and especially to get young men involved. And that people might not think of that much, but you know, you've got to be careful. What their size is now might be a lot bigger in 10 years, and you only need an economic downturn for that to have a play. It's a really good point. See, totally agree. I do invite them on. I want to find out what made them go down that path, that rabbit hole in towards the NSN. I would love to have anybody who's on the NSN to come on this podcast, and we'll have a discussion. But I don't think they're going to. I've seen them on podcasts. I saw Joel Davis on the Australia versus the Agenda podcast, and they are definitely NSN leaning because they basically let Joel go on there and just talk. Joel Davis was just given the microphone and allowed to spread his NSN bullshit. So anyway, see, very, very good pickup. So this is good, guys. I haven't had comments like this. I need to get more. I'm happy about that. So here's my current feed. We'll have a bit of a quick roll through it. Then we might just call it a night. Albanese's quote is a big fan. I'm still a minister. Annika Wells faces mounting criticism. She's still a minister. She defended her hands-on approach, telling journalists on Tuesday that was still a new minister. Oh, she's a new minister and needed time before deciding on penalties. She's hopeless. She can speak well, but that's it. You need to be able to do more than speak well. Breaking. The IDF found documents in Hamas compounds in Gaza that trace a direct link from Hamas leadership to flotillas funding and even ship ownership. Greta is funded by Hamas. Why does that not surprise? If she is that, she should lose all credibility. She won't. March for Australia locations couldn't. Oh. Have I got these up? Yep. Where's the Melbourne one? Can't read that. Open image. Bear with me, guys. I'll just open it in a new tab where I can get that up a bit. Oh, yeah. Same old place. Let me share that with you. That's worth sharing. Again, it's the same old replace screen sharing. So, 19th of October, that's in a few weeks, end mass immigration, protect our heritage, our culture, and our way of life. So here's one of my issues with that. That's end mass immigration now. Okay, we can all do that. What else are you going to do to protect our heritage, our culture, and our way of life? The one thing I'm trying to do through this podcast is introduce policies that can actually achieve that. They don't put policies. It's all that dog whistle about immigrants. Now, I've actually put forward a 10-year freeze on immigration, but not because it's anything racist, because the whole society just needs to have pause to catch its breath, to recover from it and put our infrastructure in it and decide what our immigration intake should be like. So we definitely shouldn't be having mass immigration. So I'm not going to disagree with that. Main speeches will be first and then a march. Okay. So they don't tell you who the speakers are. So you know you're going to get the NSN types. They'll be up there. No foreign flags. It's time to put Australia first. Now, they had one of these guys, I think it was the Watch New guy, but this guy was waltzing around and he took it upon himself. So if there was an Indigenous Australian who was coming up to these and they were bringing their Aboriginal flag. Now, I believe we should be, in our sports and in our parliaments, it should be the national flag. I don't think we should be having the three flags there. But if you're of Indigenous heritage and you want to come along to these things with a Indigenous flag or a Torres Islanders flag, I don't have any beef with that. You can take pride in your culture. I'd have no problem. For example, the Catholic Church has its own colours, and I'm pretty sure it's got a flag. So if you're a Catholic and took that along, what's the problem with that? As long as there's Aussie flags and a bunch of them, then that's fine. Please either bring our blue ensign, red ensign, or the Eureka flag. Well, these people were getting told who came along with other flags to go away. Now, how's that bringing us together? I'm not too sure. But anyway, I'll get back into... So it's the same format, same people. So, no interest from me. If you want to go, that's fine. Feel free. Here we go, back into this. What else is news tonight? Peter Cridlin was on fire in a lead additional on Sky News, reigniting the male pedophilia being housed. Here we go. How we got into... it goes for 6 minutes. I'll tell you what, I will repost that, get on my feed and have a listen. That was what I was talking about before. It's insane. I might just listen to it for a couple of minutes.
We'll pick up again on that story out of Victoria last night of a trans woman, so biological male, currently imprisoned in a women's jail. Outrage today has turned to the leniency of the sentence, 4.5 years, 4 years and 9 months, for sexually abusing their own daughter. But get this, it comes with a 2.5-year non-parole period. Calls now for the Victorian Premier to act.
These are sentences that are not in line with community expectations. That is why we will make sure we will review all of the sentencing here in Victoria.
We will stay with this issue, and I should say up front that this is very shocking. It's very shocking, some of these details. You'll recall last night, leading women's activist Rachel Wong and I discussed the horrific case of a trans woman, a biological man in other words, currently serving time in a Victorian women's prison for molesting his own 5-year-old daughter to please a chat room male friend, and whose appallingly short sentence was shortened further on the grounds that he was a female subject to coercive control.
That is disgraceful. That is just out and out disgraceful. If you had said that 5 years ago, no one can believe it. I actually think, and we put this in one of our policies, magistrates that give these judgments and sentences should face accountability. They should be certainly cleaned off the bench at a minimum, but that is absolutely disgraceful. That person, that magistrate, I believe should be on charges. They, as Brad Batten just said, they're not reflecting community expectations. That is just an out-and-out disgrace on two fronts. One, that he could do that to his own daughter, and two, he gets to sit in a female prison when he's a male. Just absolutely disgraceful. True Pablo, the person is making a drink, blah, blah, blah. Abby and her husband again. Oh, my God, I won't even play them. Those two are just nuts. Albo sleazy statement on President Trump's plan. There is so much to unpick on this one-sided statement. As per usual, the Palestinians are the victims and the Israelis are the perpetrators. Notice in his first paragraph, he says, bring peace to Gaza. Oh, we'll have a look. Australia welcomes President Trump's plan to bring peace to Gaza after almost 2 years of conflict and a devastating loss of a civilian life. Australia has consistently been part of an international calls for a ceasefire, return of hostages, and flow of aid to Gaza. I welcome the opportunity to discuss this plan with other leaders over the past week. So he's trying to take claim for it. Australia affirms the plan's commitment to denying Hamas any role in the future governance of Gaza and calls on Hamas to agree to the plan, lay down its arms, and release all remaining hostages. We commend the plan's focus on Palestinian self-determination and statehood. Interesting from that other one. And the Palestinian Authority taking back effective control of Gaza. Not what was in that other post. I still haven't seen the official plan yet. President Trump's plan reflects a clear rejection of annexation and forced displacement of Palestinians. We acknowledge the diplomatic efforts to include Palestinian, Arab, and other key partners' views in this plan, as demonstrated by the statements of support from the Palestinian Authority. Australia urges all parties to engage seriously with the plan and to work to bring its vision into reality without delay. Together with our partners, Australia will continue to support efforts to end the war and work towards a just and sustainable two-state solution. Now, on that last post I read you, the guy said that, and he was no official guy, there wasn't a two-state solution. They weren't going to include it. So who's telling the truth? No. My plan for Gaza as follows. ID cards. Digital ID. I like it. Libya Sharks, a Jewish man. His wife and children were murdered by Hamas. If he feels bad for the terrorists who butchered them, read that again. He was starved near to death for 491 days. His 2 young daughters were murdered. His wife was murdered in CBS. Let's have a listen.
May I ask maybe a hard question? There are going to be people who watch this and say, you're giving this space to this man to share his story. What about the 60,000 plus people in Gaza who've been killed?
First of all, they need to remember who started October 7. If someone can explain to me how you fighting against a terror organization that hiding behind his own population without people to get hurt, innocent people, I don't know how to do it.
May I ask maybe a hard question? There are going to be people who watch this and say,
interesting.
You're giving this space to
if I was that man,
to share his story.
Sorry.
What about?
If I was that man, I certainly would not be engaging or having any sympathy with Hamas. Kill them all is my thing too. If they killed my daughters in that way, China bans all in BNP. We're nearly. We'll see if there's anything else. Hamas later has announced. Hamas says it will not give up weapons until a Palestinian state is created. The group's claim it is open to forming a technocratic government with the Palestinian authorities. Hostages will not be released until Israel agrees to withdraw from Gaza. So that's pretty much a no. So there you go. Not surprising. There's that boat. Has Australia reached peak fluoride? Yes. Andrew Tate, don't need any more Andrew Tate in my life. How far does this go? Climate Safe Room, City of Yarra. Climate Saver subsidies for eligible concession card holders to create a thermally comfortable room at home. Oh my God. How did we ever live? I suppose a fisherman, we've already gone through that. This is Magistrate Gail Hubble. She has granted bail to a 14-year-old Sudanese-born male whose name the public cannot know on at least 50 occasions. 50. The kid had a rap sheet of over 400 criminal charges, included aggravated burglaries, carjackings, home invasions, and armed robberies. Is this some sort of social experiment? Surely it is time he gets locked up. Many have for far less. Where's the oversight of the judiciary? I could not agree more. This guy, I totally agree with what she's saying. Last one, Sam Bamford is an Australian Army combat veteran and former paratrooper deployed to Afghanistan in 2012. Sam cuts through the woke bullshit, shines a light on government lies, manipulation and corruption, and he is strong common sense voice for Australians. Give this Aussie legend a follow. Let's have a quick listen to finish off the night.
All right, so Victoria is currently living in the Joe Biden era. I'd say about year 1 or 2 of his presidency, when California and New York were completely off the rails. They had soft on crime policies, chaos was on the streets, and males were being locked up in female prisons. And we're watching the same playbook unfold in Victoria. Male sex offenders, biological males, are being placed in female prisons. Yes, you heard that correctly. Sean Maloney sexually abused his 5-year-old daughter for years, and he got a lighter sentence because the court accepted his claim that it validated him as a woman. Imagine the level of indoctrination you need to think that is okay. A biological male abuses his own daughter, then in the same act says it validated him as a woman. And instead of throwing the book at him, the court actually accepts it. They give him a lighter sentence and then throw him in a women's prison. Imagine the level of indoctrination you need to think that is okay. Just stop and think about that for a moment. That's not justice, that's not safety, that is ideology, and it is dangerous. Then comes the Victorian Premier herself. Yesterday, Alan stood there and bragged. Yes, bragged at a conference to say her machete plan is working. And in the same breath, literally the same press conference, she sent condolences to a family of an Aboriginal man that was hacked to death with machete. Right, and just 2 weeks ago, 2 boys were slaughtered to death with machetes. And she sits there and claims her grand plan is working. Machete bins, machete bans, it's all working. This lady is a complete moron. Families are literally burying their kids in Victoria while she smiles for the camera and tells you everything is okay. The gaslighting here is just on another scale. And as she was in that same press conference, violence erupted in Melbourne. You can't make this stuff up. A stolen BMW full of kids that were on bail armed with machetes plowed through an intersection in the city, hitting one pedestrian. Now, these kids were already out on bail. And guess what? They just got released on bail again today. If we're too scared to call these crimes out by the color of your skin, black, brown, or white, well, kids will keep dying. That's just a fact. We either get comfortable with calling it as it is, or we get comfortable with burying kids. Those are our 2 options. Because if we can't identify the problem of black young youth crime running around with machetes, we'll never be able to fix it. And by not fixing it, we will keep burying kids, right? Because the fix is so simple. Stop importing people from lawless societies, scrap the woke DEI bail law system, revoke the citizenship of immigrants and deport them back to their country of origin, and adult crime for adult time. And what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and thinking that you're going to get a different result. No sane government would run their state this far into the ground. What's your thoughts?
He is well worth the follow. As Lozzie said there, he speaks really well. And unlike me, he keeps it simple and short. So, yeah, that'll do us for tonight. Give him, Sam, a follow. You saw that. I'll get back on there. He is, what does he call it? To look him up, Two Worlds Podcast. It's just on there, at Two Worlds Podcast. Get on to him. Give him a follow. He's well worth it. He puts out some great content, and I couldn't recommend him highly enough. So for us, that'll do us for our latest episode of the Eureka Podcast. I'll just stop the screen sharing, get my big ugly mug back on there. Thanks, everyone, for joining in. Thanks for the comments. It was great to get some comments tonight. We haven't had that nearly all. So it's good to get that engagement and get people on board and talking. And from me and my boy, there he is, see, he's bored out of his brain. He's saying, Dad, what are you doing? I'm ready to go WALK. So we are one of those pair that walk at strange times of the day. One, through my work, but 2, he's a rescue dog and he's not very good with other dogs when we are WA. I got to spell it because if I say it right now, he'll go insane. But he's not very good when I walk on a lead with other dogs. He's getting a lot better. So one quick way to address that is we do a lot of our walks at night, which is probably dangerous in Melbourne. But, you know, I've got a big 40-kilogram German Shepherd with me, and his bark is frightening. He'd never hurt anyone, but, I mean, look at him. He's bored out of his brain. He's bored out of his brain, the poor fella. So he's just sick of all this. He wants to go. So I better I better end up there, guys. Thanks again for watching. For those who are out there watching, even to you, what's your name? Ferguson434. Like I said, mate, if you ever want to come on, feel free. Put your name to it. This old boomer puts his face on the internet and has his opinions. I'm sure I would welcome anybody else with whatever opinions they've got, would happily bring them on, and we can engage. Like I said, as long as it's respectful and courteous, and it's the content it doesn't get thin, because at that point I'll cut you off. But if you want to engage and talk, then feel free. Grab your loved ones, hug your loved ones. If you don't have loved ones, get a dog like I've got, because they're as a loving animal as you'll ever get. And we'll see you next week. For those who look forward to my Bible rants and Bobby rants every day, I'll try and get on sometime between 3 and 5, somewhere in there. Just give us a follow and you'll see it coming through. I just randomly do those ones. This one is Tuesday, 8 o'clock every week. Spread the word and let's get more people on board, and let's see what conservative policies and platform we can get put together to take to our politicians, especially on the centre right, and get rid of this woeful government that Sam was just talking about then, who's got criminals running riot on our streets. So God bless. Good night. We'll see you all next week, if not before then. See ya.